In a few moments, I'll read the list of people from our community who died in the past year. Yet whether a loved one's passing was recent or even 2 or more years ago, many today are still trying to regain their footing. I've spoken with many of you in the weeks after a loss. You've told me that you're managing, but that it's so hard without your mother, your father, your spouse, or your child. Especially for funerals since March, for which we could only have a few people graveside, and for which Shiva was virtual or non-existent. You felt awful because your beloved did not have the funeral he or she deserved. Restrictions on our traditions due to the pandemic did not provide a sense of closure. On paralysis due to loss, Rabbi Stephen Leder of Los Angeles describes the dilemma and gives a beautiful response. We buried her 13 months ago. This flower, this light, this precious partner of his for many years. It's been more than a year now, but John does not want to move on. Sure, he loves the kids and the grandchildren and the weekly telephone calls that he gets from them, checking up just to make sure that he is all right. And he plays tennis once or twice a week, and he plays cards once in a while. But he knows that isn't enough. And so this morning, John sits on the lumpy old couch in my office, looking old and lumpy himself, asking me why he can't shed his grief. My friends and my children say that it's time already. They say that I should move on. He tells me, fighting back the tears. But I don't want to move on. Am I abnormal? Why is it so hard to move on? In his book, Transitions, William Bridges wrote, divorces, deaths, job changes, illnesses, these things disengage us from the contexts in which we have known ourselves. They break up the old cue system that served to reinforce our roles and to pattern our behavior. In other words, those who lose a loved one may not understand who they are anymore. Watching today, coping with loss, spent a lot of time and energy caring for an ill parent. Now they are no longer a child as they were before. But furthermore, they are no longer caregivers. The death not only left an emotional void, but it left them with a kind of time disorientation. They had a way to structure time around the ailing person's needs that felt familiar. Their schedules might have included daily visits to mom or dad, and tasks such as assistance with meals, pills, therapy, and so on. Caregiving is taxing, and its conclusion can be a relief. But with all of this gone, how will they fill their time? This leads to further identity confusion and anxiety. With any major change, individuals enter what Bridges calls the neutral zone. It is an in-between realm in which we are not who we were, but not yet who we will become. It is a time to gestate so a new self can emerge. In today's world, this emptiness is denigrated because it seems like nothing is happening, and we crave action. Bridges says we see transition like crossing a street. One would be a fool to stay out there in the middle of the street any longer than was necessary. So once you step off the curb, you move on to the other side as fast as you can. And whatever you do, don't sit down on the center line to think things over. This view, he states, makes no sense out of the pain of ending, nor the feeling of emptiness that seems to stretch on forever. We need to exist in the middle, in the neutral zone, to renew our energy. We must surrender to that emptiness. While this can be frightening, it is essential because the neutral zone lies between the old life and the new. Transformation is a death and a rebirth. Bridges states one must return symbolically to chaos to create anew. God created the world from chaos, and similarly, a person must enter uncertainty in order to rebuild herself. We all need the neutral zone in transition, just as trees need the winter. Neutral zones are significant in the Bible's stories of change. Noah endured the flood, the scary period between the old and the new orders. Jonah lived in the belly of the whale, emerging with new purpose. The Israelites wandered for 40 years in the desert, an empty region, before becoming a nation bound by common purpose. In these examples, individuals or groups might have spent moments or days or even years in the neutral zone, and the quality and intensity of their experiences were varied. And so it is with us. Every person's needs in response to major life changes are different. Regardless, transition from one state of being to the next is a sacred process. And this is Rabbi Letter's message to John about time. Not the kind of time that clocks and calendars measure, but the kind of time that can never be accelerated. He told John about the time that it takes to heal, the time it takes before one can move on again, the time he calls God's good time. For those of us trying to help family or friends who seem to be struggling, let's not tell them it's time. How do we know? Maybe we say things like, it's time, because their sadness makes us feel uncomfortable. Perhaps we just want them to be who they were before. Instead, let us let them grieve in their own way by giving them time. Bridges laments the common view of change. By treating ourselves like appliances that can be turned on and off, that can be unplugged and plugged in, again at will, we have forgotten the importance of fallow time and rests in music. We have abandoned a system of dealing with the neutral zone through ritual, and we have tried to deal with personal change as though it were just a matter of simple readjustment. The Yizkor service that we are about to recite is a ritual designed to help navigate the neutral zone. The familiar sounds of the mourners' Kaddish and the response between the leader and the congregation are calming. We also read Psalm 23, which states, "Though I walk through the valley of deepest darkness, I fear no evil, for you are with me." A valley is a low place, a depression. The valley is the neutral zone. At times it might be terrifying, but God is with you. And beyond the valley is the peak. For the psalmist, God is a partner always, but especially during this in-between time. The psalmist understood the need for comfort during transition. The Yizkor passages we recite for relatives and groups help in a different way. Soon we will read, "In tribute to her memory, I pledge to perform acts of charity and goodness, acts of tzedakah." Our tradition guides us through the neutral zone by urging us to engage in this world. When we help others, we are more likely to emerge from mourning with a renewed sense of purpose. And finally, the fact that we remember loved ones is a balm for the anxiety of loneliness. Happy memories buoy our spirits, and thoughts of their deeds inspire us to uphold their values. Memories bring guidance, lighting a path through the neutral zone. I want to read to everyone the following poem by Marge Piercy, Advice to a Loved One's Surviving Family and Friends. When I die, give what is left of me away to children and to old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking down the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch bodies and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. If you are still hurting from a loss and you find yourself in the neutral zone, we love you. We will not rush you, but rather we will wait on the hill on the other side of the valley. We gently remind you that life is a gift, and we look forward to the day when you are ready to start a new chapter. We now turn to the